What do we say? Hi.
Hey guys.
How you doing?
On my dog.
Can y'all hear me up there, Mike?
We can, real well. We
Good.
got loudspeakers. We hear you loud and clear.
Where are you guys right now? Where are you located?
We are in Hawk Hall at Summerville Church.
I've never been to Hawk Hall. I've heard many times about it, but I've never been there.
Yeah, it was built, about 15 years? 20 years ago.
Wow.
So we have
That
spent...
tells you the last time I was in Summerville.
We have spent all day outside doing sports and devos and hiking trips, all kinds of things.
Very nice.
So, those of you that don't know Jeff,
Hi, Jeff.
Jeff has many titles. One of them's a fisherman.
That's right.
What do we know about fishermen?
They catch fish. They're fishers of men.
They kill fish.
They're fishers of men.
Hey,
What's the biggest bass you ever caught? Fishers of men.
the first century church was built on fishermen, right?
Give me a rock. 3 not to take it.
How many of you have ever heard of trout magnet?
I have. Pretty good.
We've got a little bit of the word out for you, Jeff.
Good. Get that word out up there.
Why did he make them?
He made them.
Oh, they work really good.
You like them?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Go.
Oh,
What did you say about it?
Now here's
I think they're really good. We use them all the time.
Good deal. Well, I'm actually sitting right now where we make the trout magnet. I'm in the office where we make it.
Oh, ask for
I thought my cell signal would be better here than it would be other places. In fact, in a little bit, Mike, I might take you around and show everybody how we make some of the stuff.
That would be awesome. How many of you'd like to see that?
Yeah, I'll show you. I hope someone's here. I don't think anyone's here running the machine right now, but I can show you the machines and stuff where we make it and that kind of stuff. So yeah, in a little bit I'll do that. I'll walk you guys around and show you a little bit about the place.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, I'll get out your road and let you take over here, buddy.
All right, sounds good. Well, you guys been together all day, right?
That's correct, since 1 o'clock.
I just got here.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I'm glad Mike asked me to speak for a little bit tonight. I was hoping to get some of my buddies to help speak tonight, but I couldn't get them. We're all kind of traveling out and about today, so I couldn't get them to help me. But I'm going to share some thoughts that come from those friends that I was hoping to get to help us. Who in here has ever heard of the Unashamed podcast that Bill Robertson does from Duck Dynasty? You guys ever heard of that before? I am unashamed. If you've ever seen that, that's actually Phil, Jace, Alan, those three in particular are on there all the time. Then they have some of the other guys in there too, where they sit down and they talk about why they believe in the gospel and how they live in such a way that they're unashamed of it. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that, and I'll show you around the trout magnet stuff, the area around here. You guys can ask questions about it and what we do here too. Growing up, I always heard the gospel, the word gospel. And I'm like, what is the gospel? And it wasn't until later in life that I really understood what the gospel is all about. I put this on I put this little lamp right here on my table as I was speaking tonight for a reason. If you've ever watched the Unashamed podcast with Phil and those guys, in the background you will notice a lamp. And that lamp is a duck call. And it's got a duck on the outside of it, you can see. And then at the bottom it's made of wood, right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't notice that for a while, but it's really one of a kind type of lamp. And the reason I know that is because one time when they were up there fishing with me, they made this duck call, hand-carved duck call, for me. And they have one there on that set. And the reason I brought it today is because when they sent it to me, it wasn't for a long time time later that I noticed something right here in the corner. And I guarantee it's on there because they put this on almost everything that they do. And it was one of their friends that actually made this for me. It was up here fishing with us. And if you look, I'm going to get it where it's real close and see if you can see that. Mike, can you see that where you're close at?
Yes, I can.
Down plus belly.
What is that? Can you tell what that is?
It looks like an arrow down, maybe a cross, a grade, an arrow up, an arrow down.
The belly button.
I just heard you guys singing about it. You know what this is right there?
Belly button.
That's the gospel. The gospel is the good news about Jesus coming to earth, being here like one of us, being killed so we could have forgiveness of sins, going back to heaven, raised back to life, and then going back to heaven. This is the gospel. The good news, the fact that Jesus overcame death. And if you're around those guys very much, this is written on a lot of stuff that they do. They want to be reminded and remind you of what they believe. That they're not ashamed in telling people about Jesus Christ. Now, be honest with me. I know I grew up, I went to Clary Limestone High School. I wasn't always the one out there going, hey, let me tell you who Jesus is. It's hard, right? It's hard because every time we start talking about it, we kind of look like that freak, right? It's kind of hard to get that conversation going. So when I talk about being unashamed about the gospel, here's what I want to encourage you guys to start thinking about. First of all, is it written on everything that you do? Is it in your conversation about what you believe? And do you really believe this happened? Death, burial, resurrection, and back to heaven right now. If you look at Romans chapter 1, here's the verse that I'm going to talk about for a little bit tonight. It's Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Paul says here this. He says, I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God for salvation of everyone who believes it. Everybody who believes in that power of this story right here will be saved. And it goes on to say, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. What is Paul saying? Paul is saying that I have witnessed the power of Jesus Christ. I have witnessed, he heard him on the road to Damascus. He witnessed the power of moving miracles and the things that he was seeing, who Jesus was, and those that were there and saw him live. Now, my question to you this afternoon and this evening is this. Do you really believe this to be true? The gospel. Because it's really hard to be unashamed of something we don't really believe or have the feeling that it happened. Because if this truly happened, if the creator of the cosmos sent his son down here to be physical, just like you and I, to live, then the Romans killed him. 3 days later, he starts breathing again. He comes back to life, shows himself to all those who didn't believe and those who did. And then he went back to the right hand God. If that's true, what does that change? See, because here's what I found out about my friends at Devotional, is they have got one thing right. They know who Jesus Christ was and that he did this. And because of that, it gives you and I hope. Because if this is true, it changes everything. And if it's true, I can believe it so much that I will not be ashamed. Right now, I see Mike wearing a mask, and it's kind of one of those things where, who wears a mask, who doesn't wear a mask? Well, if you don't wear a mask, there's a group of people that say, hey, you're crazy. If you do wear a mask, oh, you're crazy, you're giving up your rights. And so it's really hard to not choose a side on that. Because if you don't wear one, you chose one. If you wear one, then you've chosen one. But are you ashamed to wear that mask? Well, that's kind of hard to say, right? Sometimes it's the right thing to do. Because sometimes you do things so much, not because of the desire to do it, just because everybody else does it. And I think what's happened with a lot of us as Christians, we'll go to Bible school, we'll go to church every once in a while, we'll hear about this Jesus, and we kind of think, yeah, that's pretty cool, but it's also pretty crazy. How could that even be possible? And then I think all those things, and I go, man, I'm just not sure yet. I'm just not sure. Well, I hope after I talk to you a little bit tonight, that I can convince you this is something worth fighting for. It's something that I hope, as we get in our hearts what this story is about the death, burial, and resurrection, that we can say, I am unashamed, no matter what. No matter what comes my way, I can say, I believe in Jesus Christ. There's a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of things that I'm confused about. Why did the power change with these healings that Paul saw? I don't know, but I still believe God works. I still believe he does a lot of miraculous things and changes the world daily as we pray. But I also know that the things that happen in Scripture that I read about this death, burial, and resurrection, they happen. Think about where we are. What year are we in, Mike? What year are we right now? 20 what?
2020.
You know when you started measuring time, Mike?
Birth of Jesus.
Right here. Did you guys know that? We measured it on Jesus after his death. Think, the whole world is measuring time on this story. That should make us all go, wow, what happened on this time frame that now, 2020, we're marking our time by this? It's because it happened. Guys, this happened, and I believe with all my heart. There's times I'm not as strong as I should be, and I would even say I'm unashamed at times because I won't speak up about it, but I believe it. And I want to encourage you to encourage me as we encourage each other to say, believe it and tell everybody about it, because it has power to save you. See, it doesn't mean anything if this was just a cool story. I mean, it's just like, hey, that's a cool story to tell you about something happened on the news. No. This happened, and because it happened, it changes everything. You know, in a book, as you're reading it, a book starts out with a lot of information, but somewhere in the book comes a peak. And the peak is the climax of the story. The story points everything in front of it and everything after it. Everything after it points back to it. That point is this right here, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the gospel, the good news that he came back to life. So in this book, in the Old Testament, you go away through Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, it's all pointing to that death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the climax. Now everything after is pointing back to it. So Paul's saying, look what the fire had. Look what Jesus did. He came back to life. Because of that, you and I have power to overcome death. So this power that's in this resurrection is just the fact that it's a powerful story. It's powerful because you and I, in believing that story and through obedience to that story, we can overcome death. You know, there's a lot of people out there right now that are experts. You know, you're seeing all this stuff on Facebook about being an expert on whether the COVID virus is real, you know, how real it is, and how many people it's killing. And you go back and forth, you see this side say, will somebody please just tell me which expert is right? Because these experts are just, you know, guessing a lot of these things. They have science, but they're a lot of guessing. You know, as you look at the experts, there's one thing in common with all these experts. You know what that common thread is with all of them? It's common with each and every one of us, and that the Lord comes back. We're all going to die. And that's what I want to go to and look at right now, is what can man do with this virus of COVID right now? Well, he can tell you to put a mask on. He can tell you to stay away 6 feet from everybody. He can tell you to change the way you're eating out and maybe pick stuff up. He tells you not to go to big gatherings, right? That's what man tells you to do. But what can God do with a virus? What can God do with sickness? What can God do with any calamity that happens on this earth? Well, to that, there's one passage that I always look at. And I promise I'm not going to go long, so stay with me on this. This won't be long, but I promise I've got something I want to get to that I hope that you will see clearly tonight. If you have your Bibles, turn to Mark chapter 4. Anybody in here like to fish? I see a couple hands up. How about this being a boat on the lake? Anybody like that? Yeah. I love it. In fact, I'm on the water a lot.
1076, by the way. 1076. I was giving them the page number, Jeff.
Okay, gotcha. Mark chapter 4. But I love being in a boat. I was in a boat yesterday, and there was a lot of current and a lot of stuff going on, and there's so much power when you're in that boat, but you're kind of at the will of nature and water, because it can be pretty dangerous. And a lot of times I'll wear a life jacket, even by law I don't have to. But sometimes I'll wear it because it's pretty scary out there, and you guys have probably done that as well. But in Mark chapter 4, verse 35, Jesus goes out to the boat and says, let's go to the other side of the lake. He gets in the boat, and in verse 36 it says, leaving the crowd behind, they took him along. Just as he was in the boat, there with him a furious squall came up. In other words, a big storm came up. In verse 37, a furious squall came up, and the waves broke around the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. This is a bad storm. This just wasn't a little wave. Jesus in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. I don't know why I put that in there, but it's kind of neat. He was very relaxed and he was not afraid. The disciples woke him up and said, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Listen, wake up, don't you care if we're all going to die and you too? He got up, rebuked the wind, and said, "Wind, quiet, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to the disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you not have faith?" I don't know about you. I remember when I was a kid up there in Pittsburgh, we watched the Pittsburgh news for weather a lot. And we'd always watch them, and one thing I can tell you for sure is they were hardly ever right. They might be better now. But now with the wind and the rain, what can man tell you when a tornado's coming through Summerville there, Mike? What does the weatherman tell you?
Hide.
Hide! Get underneath something, hurry! Right? Down here in Arkansas, they happen all the time. And because of that, we have storm shelters in almost every facility. You can go in there, you can close the door, let the tornado blow everything except that thing away, and then you get out. So man can tell you when to go hide. That's about it. What can God do with the storm? Look at that. He can calm it. So my expert tells me, hide. My expert tells me, get underneath something. But you know what happens to him if it is where he's filming the news? He's dead too, right? He can only tell you to get prepared. He can't stop it. We learn from this story right here that Jesus Christ on this earth said, "Wind stop," and it stopped. Do you believe that story? I believe that story. I believe that happened. The next passage, chapter 5, just right after that. This demon-possessed man, I'm not even sure what that means. I'm not sure exactly how these people look, but they look crazy and no one can control them. Comes running out of the hills. And no one could control this man. They couldn't even chain him down. But Jesus said, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." And the name of the spirit was Legion, because there were so many. And he cast out these demons in a herd of pigs, and the pigs go down into the lake and kill themselves. What can man do with sickness and disease like these spirits? Nothing. What can God do? See ya, and they're gone. What can Jesus do? See ya, they're gone. The next part is there's a girl who's sick, and she says, "If I can just touch the garment of Jesus, I'll be healed." And you see it in chapter 5, verse 30. Actually, in verse 29 it says, "Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering." And once Jesus realized that the power had gone out of him, he turned around the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" Can you imagine people surrounded him? And who touched my clothes? He knew that somebody who believed in him had touched his clothes. And so they brought her and said, he said, "Your faith has made you whole." What could man do with this? If you read back in that story there, man could do nothing. Doctors could do nothing for this woman. God can heal it. I'm not going to answer the question of why he does sometimes and why he doesn't, because I don't know the answer. And one day in heaven, I hope we can have a communication with God where we can ask questions. That's one of them, right? Why? But I do believe it's a lot of times we can put our faith in you. Just like in the boat. Do you guys believe he's going to take care of you through COVID? I do. I don't know how. But I believe he's going to take care of us. The last one is this. What can man do with the storm? Tell you it's coming. What can God do? Stop it. What can man do with sickness and demons? Nothing. But God can take them out. The last one is the most important one for you, and why Romans chapter 1, verse 16 should mean everything to you and to me. See, we all, experts, doctors, insurance people, no matter who you got, they're all going to be able to tell you possibly when you might die. You've got something wrong with you, you might die sooner. I don't know when I'm going to die, but I know if the Lord doesn't come back, I'm going to. It's just a fact. So when I had that in my mind, it's scary, right? It's scary to think about how we're going to die because there's so much unknown after death. But I want you to look at this story in Mark chapter 5, in verse 35. While Jesus was still speaking, this is still talking about the woman he just healed. Some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. "Your daughter is dead." He'd come to see Jesus and have Jesus heal his daughter. But they just stopped him and said, "Your daughter is dead. Why bother the teacher anymore?" Why bother Jesus? Ignoring what they said, Jesus told the synagogue ruler, don't be afraid, just believe. What? That she's gone. It had to be a very emotional time for him. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jesus saw a commotion, which happens when someone young passes away, with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. And they all were very confused, and some said they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and disciples who were with him, and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said, Talitha kum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. What just happened? Because look, immediately the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old, probably same age as some of you right there. At this they were astonished, completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to tell anyone. I'm not sure why I did that. But you see the same thing in each one. It's the same thing it says in Mark chapter 4, verse 41. Who is this? What? Who is this? It says back in verse 41 of chapter 4, even the winds and the waves obey him. Sickness and disease obey him. And here's the most important. Death itself can't control him. Guys, if I'm going to be unashamed of something, it's going to be something that can save me from the grave. It's going to be something that's going to change my destiny after I'm gone from this earth. So as you think about why people believe what they do, why do you have people like Phil Robertson and all the Robertson clan that believe so strongly in Jesus Christ? Because they've seen the power. The same thing that Paul saw, they've seen in their life. And when you're around people like that, and you've seen the gospel work in their lives and change lives, you see exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just about overcoming death. It's not just about controlling winds and waves. It's about what it does for your life if you choose to believe this story. It changes everything. It changes the way you live. It changes your whole outcome in life. It changes everything. It doesn't protect you from bad things. I'm not saying that. But it changes everything. Because in the end, nothing can separate me from this love he showed to me in this story. I'm unashamed, guys. There's times I get where I'm not as fired up for the Lord as I should be. It's because I don't spend time here. But when I look at this story and I surround myself with people that believe this story, it changes everything for me. And I hope it will for you too. If you're looking at this and going, I don't know what to believe, well then study about Jesus Christ. Find out why we measure our time from him. The good news, gospel means good news. The good news is Jesus came to this earth. He died, but that's the sad part of the story. The good news is he came back to life after 3 days. He started breathing. He got up. He ate. He hung around for several days and then went back to heaven. Showing the same thing he did with this little girl. Death does not control him. We all have one problem, and that's a death problem. And because of that, this story is for all of us. It's not just for one, it's for all of us. We all need it. But it also leads to a different life. It leads to a life of peace, joy, contentment. If you start following Jesus' teaching, the way you love everybody, no matter what color they are, no matter where they're from, no matter what they do, you love them as Christ loved you and did this for you. It teaches us how to live daily, not just how to live so we can live eternally. And because of that, it's a life worth living. It's a life that I'm unashamed of to live, and I hope you are too. Listen, I love you guys up there. I'm going to open it up here in a minute for questions, and then I'm going to walk us around the trout magnet room, and you guys can ask questions about Romans chapter 1, or you can ask questions about fishing, whatever it might be. Because here's what I found, is that my whole life revolves around several different things. My family, my business, but most importantly, my God. And most of the time when you talk about one, you talk about all of them. And I'm going to share with you a story here before we close about sharing our faith when we're unashamed, and what that looks like. Mike, what you got? Anybody got any questions?
Have questions, guys?
I put them all to sleep, Mike. I put them all to sleep. No, you're not asleep yet.
How?
Pretty deep. What's that?
What was that?
I said it's pretty deep stuff, really.
Yeah.
Start talking about the gospel.
All right, Cammie, what's your question?
Where
She asked, where are you?
I'm in Searcy, Arkansas. That's a long ways away from where you are.
Arkansas.
She asked if you're inside or outside.
I'm definitely inside. Watch.
Oops, sorry, Corey.
All right, I'm inside. You can see this is our offices right here. But on our wall, we have several different pictures. There's a picture of me holding a big trout. There's John Godwin holding a crappie. Let's see who we have over here. I think I've got, oh yeah, there's Martin holding a big crappie over there. And then in our offices, we have several different things. So here's, out front, we have a display that shows all of our products. There's our crappie stuff. Over here is all of our trout stuff. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yep.
And then our offices just have all kinds of different things in them. This is where we work and we do a lot of our trout maintenance stuff. I'll take you around here and show you some of the other things as well. Can you turn this thing around?
Good question. I wonder the same thing all the time.
I can't, Jeff.
I'm trying to see how I turn it on. Give me a second here. All right, here we go. Let me turn the lights on here, and I'll take you guys around and show you where we do some of this stuff.
Huh?
Now, this is where we ship out a lot of the trout maintenance products. Each one of these bins are different things that we make. Here's a trout name pack, all the different colors. Here's all kinds of different stuff, line, different baits. We have different things that we make, like crankbaits, those types of things. Then we have, this is our line here that we do with Duck Commander. It's called Fin Commander. I don't know if you've seen any of the Fin Commander videos. It's mostly fishing videos that we do, and all of this is stuff that's made under that Fin Commander brand with the Duck Commander crew. Then we have all this crappie stuff over here that we make. So this is where we ship a lot of the stuff out. I'll go back here and show you. Then I'll go over here and show you where we make some of the stuff too. This is where we ship a lot of the things out. Can you guys still hear me good?
Yeah, we got a question for you, Jeff.
Fire away.
Say that again?
How do you make this?
She's asking, how do you make those things?
Say it again.
How do you make those?
Okay, I'm about to show you. Coming over to the other building here.
He on black.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Give me a second, I'm bringing it into the building. Don't tell anybody.
Oh, there he is.
Wait. Second. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, you're back with us again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. I think the Wi-Fi kicked off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. They were asking how we make them. Let me tell you. We just shut down the machines earlier, but this is how we make them. This is the machine right here that makes the trout. If you look, there's a mold here on both sides. And they take these out. Take 110 of them out every 50 seconds. You can make it. That's called millworm gold. And you can make whatever color you want. You change the color in the containers over here, and it puts it in the machine and comes out whatever color.
Oh, that's some high quality Wi-Fi. Some high quality H2O. Honestly, I could joke. You know, like, it is literally
Is he plucking corn now? I can't tell what he's doing.
Yeah. It's not done in this building. It's the left part. The size and shape. That's basically what you
Doing great.
You were getting pretty spotty on us, Jeff.
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I think what's happening going into this building, it's not making it to where it's in. Did you see the video? Did you see where I was making the base?
A little bit.
Yes, we couldn't see pretty well. We just couldn't hear you very well.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I was just saying we can make several different colors there and different things. I'm going to walk in here and see. Hopefully you can hear me so I can get something I'm about to show you. This right here is what I want to show you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. See this base right here?
Yep.
It's called Thunderhawk. What I want to do is I want to share with you a story that hopefully will encourage you all to do this as I try to do this every day in my life. I'm going to come back around here where you guys can see me. But Thunderhawk is named after a guy named Hawk Hua. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. So basically what happened was, about 10 years ago, I met a guy named Hawk. And Hawk is from China. He makes some of the products that we make for us in China. We make most of our stuff right here in America. But there are several things, like rods, reels, fishing line, hand-tied things that we make that Hawk makes in China for us. Well, Hawk called me one time and asked if I could, I would allow him to come to Searcy, Arkansas and meet him and be able to see our facility, see how we do things. We just started working with Hawk and hadn't done very much, didn't know him very well. And so I invited him to come to our facility. And so he came here to Searcy and we went fishing the next morning. And we were in the boat, and it was a beautiful day. It was a fall day. I saw a bald eagle. The water was crystal clear. And the leaves were changing on the trees a bunch. And here in Arkansas, we don't get like you guys get up there in the fall. A lot of times they go brown real quick. This day was a beautiful day. God was screaming to talk about him because it was so beautiful. But anyway, we were fishing, and Hawk mentioned the trout magnet is truly unique in the fact that it does something that most people don't understand. I'll show you what I mean in this picture. If you see the lure right here, the lure falls like this. Every other jig falls head first like that. So it falls in the water. So I was in the boat with him, and he kept saying that the trout magnet had a really good design. And we talked about that for a little bit, how it fell, and it was unique, and those types of things. And he said that probably, 10 times. Because he makes lures and knew that it was truly unique. In that conversation, he kept talking about two trees. And the two trees he kept taking pictures of. And I didn't know if it was a breakdown of our language or if it was something that was, I didn't understand, like two trees meant forest or whatever it might be, because his English was good but not great. And so he kept taking these pictures, and I finally was like, Hawk, what do you mean two trees? And what he was doing was, if you look, you might even see it in one of these pictures. In fact, you can, right here. See this tree right here? Look in the water. See the tree? That day, the reflection of the trees in the water were colorful as they were in the sky. And so he was looking at both trees saying, two trees. And then it was really pretty. And the picture he was taking was in the water and the sky. So you had both sets of trees, the one facing up and the one facing down. And to this day, he's got a picture in his office in China of that day of the two trees. As we talked that day, I asked Hawk what he believed about the two trees and who created the two trees. Now, I didn't think about that. It's not really what I had intended. But it was obvious to me that there was a very good design in this two trees. And Hawk said, I don't really believe anything or anyone created the two trees. And I was like, Hawk, come on. This trout magnet is a good design, but that tree has no designer? Like, this is nothing compared to those two trees. And so he started telling me what they believe in China, and we went back and forth. This is on a Saturday. And I said, listen, I'm going to church tomorrow if you'd like to go with me. He said, I've never been to church. I said, have you ever heard of Jesus? He said, no. He said, maybe something about a cross. I was like, yeah. I said, that's him. I said, we'll go, and I'll share with you, and I'll even try to find you a Bible. The next morning, we went to church, but he was flying out at 1 o'clock, and we had to take him to the airport. So we went to an early service. Went there. While we were there, we got to visit with somebody who spoke Chinese. They talked a little bit. We got him a Chinese Bible, and he goes back to China. And on the way to the airport, he started asking me questions, and it freaked me out because he was asking the most basic questions about why would you believe in God? Why would you follow this? Why would you follow Jesus? And man, it backed me up because I was like, I might not really know. But it got real clear to me when I went, he came back to life from the dead. He came back to life. He was dead, came back to life. And because of that, you and I have life. And so it made me back up my belief to a very core of Jesus Christ. Without him, nothing matters. It doesn't matter if you are a good person, if you don't know who Jesus is, because Jesus is the way to that eternal life. He's really the reason good exists. Because before him, the cosmos was out of control, and God placed it into order. And he started good, not man. And so I started talking to Hawk. So Hawk, on the way back to the airport, he's like, why would you help people? I'm like, because we love them like Jesus loved us. He said, people in China do not understand this. This is not the way we live. And if you think about it, have you ever noticed how there's a lot of copy products that come from China? See, they believe copying is a honorable thing. They believe it's good to copy those things. So him going back to China, he's like, I've got to tell people in China about it. I said, well, read the Bible that we've given you. If you have any questions, let us know. And he would call every couple of weeks, like, I've got lots of questions. But the more I read, the more I answer those questions. A couple of months went by, and he called and said, hey, I've read this book. And I'm like, what book? He had read the entire Bible, Mike. He was so hungry to find out what was in that book. He read the whole thing. He said, I want to come back to America. I've got lots of questions. So he came back to America. He brought his wife and his 2 girls. And this is about 6 or 7 years ago. And he brought them over to find out about this Jesus. And when he got here, a friend of mine and myself studied for a while. And we baptized him and his wife because they believed the story of the death, burial, and resurrection. And they knew there had to be a creator the more they thought about it. It doesn't make sense that all of this happened out of nothing. And so now he wanted to go back to China and start a church. So he put a church in the top floor of his fishing tour business. And I went over there, put a baptistry up there. It is so awesome. And he's telling people the good news about Jesus Christ. The good news that because of what Jesus did, I have hope. I have hope that I can overcome death. Now, I didn't tell you that story to brag on me because I can't tell you how many times I failed to not share my faith. But I do know the power that happens when you share the good news about Jesus Christ. About 2 years later, I was in China walking around the coast with Hawk. And we came to this little island, and the island was sitting out, had a building on it, and had a reflection. And he said, you remember the day we went fishing? It kind of hurts me to even tell the story. Because he said, what would have happened if you never would have told me about Jesus that day? Man, you know the power that we have with our words just to tell someone about Jesus changes their life and ours. But you first have to believe the good news is true. You have to believe that 2020 is that year because Jesus was here, died, and came back to life. And the good news about that changes everything between you and I. It means I can be unashamed about that story because if he takes my life, he's going to give it to me anyways. If this virus gets me, I'm coming back. Jesus has promised that because of the power of the gospel. The question I have for you tonight is this. Are you able to say what Paul said in Romans chapter 1, verse 16? I am unashamed. I hope you can. If you're unable to say that, spend some time in God's Word and around His people that can help you find out if this story is really true about Jesus Christ. If it is, it's something to worth not being ashamed about, that's for sure. There's a lot of things people have opinions about. There's one thing I know for sure. There's a cosmos here that's pretty crazy. When I look around here in Arkansas and when you look around up there, something had to create this. Our time is measured on the person that was on this earth that died and went back to heaven to be with God, the creator of that cosmos. Because of that, I can believe it and you can too. And I can stand up for it. I can tell people. I can tell Hawk and all these people that I come in contact with that don't know about Jesus. Listen, you need to know the story. He can control the wind, the waves, and all those things. And most importantly, he can control death itself. Because of that, I'm unashamed. I hope you are too. Hey, listen, I love you guys. Pennsylvania, I mean, I'm still a Pirate fan. I was sad when they got beat last night. So I love you guys up there, and really, really, really wish I could have been up there with you guys tonight.
Me too.
But I'm glad I got to do this. Mike, do you have questions or any thoughts?
I think Corey has a question for us.
Okay.
Hey Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about when you became a Christian, how old you were?
I didn't get all that. Say that again.
He asked if you could tell us about when you became a Christian, how old you were, and anything you could tell us about that, Jeff.
Yeah, it's interesting because, Dad was a preacher. And he knew this story and believed it wholeheartedly. And when you do, you really want someone to act on it. And because of that, sometimes we are with our parents. I didn't want to do it. I was kind of like, man, I don't want to do it because Dad wants me to do it. And I didn't want to do it because, other people wanted to do it. One of my favorite uncles sat on the front row of that church, Uncle Willie. I know he wanted me to. Everybody wanted me to, but for some reason, I didn't know what I know now about that story. And I heard it, I just didn't know it. I didn't know the power that it had. It's kind of like when we're talking about the things becoming common to us and not really getting what they mean. And you can be sitting in that room tonight and hear this story for the 44th time and still go, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. One day you're going to hear it go, oh my, that changes everything. And that happened when I was 13 years old. For several days, I kept going, if I die, I might not go to heaven. I don't understand that. But if I put my faith in Jesus, and I act through obedience in baptism, he can save me like he saved that little girl. And it scared me. And I remember that fear very, very clearly going, I have got to do something about this. And so one Sunday morning, I didn't tell my dad. I still think about him coming down off that top step. And so I went through it, and he comes jumping off that top step. Now I know why. Because he knew the significance for me of obedience to that. Because of that obedience, because of what I did that day, many, many years ago, my name was written in the book of life. Because Jesus died and raised from the dead, he gave me hope of eternal life that day. And so that day, although I've learned a lot from it, all I needed to know was Jesus. And I needed him to be able to save me. So good question. I think everybody comes to it at a different time in a different way. You don't have to have all the answers. You just got to know who Jesus is and that you believe in him. And that you believe enough to say, I'm in. And then I'll jump in this, I'll believe, God, that you will save me and that your Spirit will guide me. We don't have to have all the answers up to that point. We just got to know who Jesus is and believe in him. What else we got?
Good night.
Jeff, I have something special for you. I don't know if you caught this earlier, but I've just got to do that for you. You see?
Oh my goodness.
See those two back there?
I do see those two back there. That's my uncles. Hey guys. Hey, I love you guys.
You hear him yell back to you, Jeff?
I barely heard it, but I saw them waving. That is awesome.
I've got a question for you guys.
Alright.
How many of you, this little unorthodox, but if you're unashamed, let me hear it.
Unashamed but not.
Jeff, we thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing those words from Scripture with us. And we just appreciate you so much.
Well, I love you guys up there. Wish I could do more. If there's anything I can do, please let me know.
Come visit.
We'll do. Guys, what do you guys have to say to them?
I love you.
I'm on the stage.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks. God bless.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Well, you know, I ain't got no legs like
Christian. Did you like that? Did you like that?
I want some bait.
You what?
I want some bait so I can go fishing.
He's sending me some right now.
Really?
Did you ever heard Jeff before?
No.
Me and Willie Robertson are best friends.
I know he got me.
Sick.